Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We here at Arabic Virtual Academy welcome you back to our program entitled Steps Towards a Happy Marriage. This is video number 6, and we hope that you're benefiting from this program. We've designed it for the sole purpose of making us all think about not only our position and responsibilities in our marriage, but rather the situations, feelings, concerns, and ideas of our partners as well. You will really see this in this particular video. This video is entitled Agreeing to Disagree. Many times we get into a marriage, as you've heard me say before, and we have this notion that we'll become one person, that we will have one statement, and that means we'll always see eye to eye, so that our thoughts and our opinions will pretty much match up. But where do we learn this from? Does this even make sense? Now, I know you're probably sitting there thinking, what type of a person would think something like that? You probably don't think that you know anyone that thinks like that. But by the end of this video, you will see that unfortunately, even though we do not express this opinion off of our tongues, that many of us do express it loud and clear through our actions. It manifests itself in the way that we act with others. But we will only be focusing on today, as usual, the interactions between the husband and wife. How many times have you heard yourself say, and remember now, that we're focusing on you and not your spouse, so we don't want any finger pointing going on during this video, except that you were pointing at yourself. Now, how many times have you heard yourself say, how can you not see that? Or even, what's wrong with you that you cannot see what I'm saying to be the truth? Maybe even the phrase, you're only sticking to that opinion so you don't have to admit that you're wrong. Don't you see that you feel as though your spouse should feel and think the way you do? We feel as though they need to hold on to the same opinions and views that we have, and if they don't, then there's something wrong with them. This is impossible. This is something that we need to stop doing right now. Because as you know, you hate when someone else does it to you. When it's done to you, you understand that they have no right to tell you how you should feel or think. But as many other things, we forget the whole concept of being rational when the shoe is on the other foot, meaning when we're on the giving end of this action or statement. One thing that has to be understood from the beginning is that the experts tell us there are many different elements that cause an individual to take the stances that they take, to see the world the way they do, and to experience some of the feelings that they experience. From these things are things like financial status, religion, educational background, life experiences, and habits. We're all different in all of these issues. There aren't any two of us that are exactly the same in all of these aspects. Therefore, we cannot expect any two of us to see eye to eye all of the time. I'm sure by now you're saying to yourself, I already know this. But if you know this, then why do we find ourselves so many times so adamant about having our spouses agree with us in everything? Like we're right and they're wrong all of the time. Why do we find ourselves arguing about things that we should not even be arguing about? It's because we want them to see, feel, and think exactly the way that we see, feel, and think, even if we don't want to admit it. Not everything works like a math equation. As a matter of fact, the more that we learn about what we usually find ourselves arguing about, usually it's not like this. A math equation has a right and wrong answer. Either you get the check mark or you get the big red X and the complimentary buzz that goes along with it. But many of the situations that we find ourselves debating over are issues where any of these factors that we talked about a few minutes ago are going to change your opinion. They will cause you to see things differently. This is something that you have to begin to expect, because as you said earlier, you know that you will not always see eye to eye. And no one will blame you if you don't. Who really wants to be in a relationship where their spouse is their yes man or yes woman and doesn't have an opinion other than the opinion that you come with? This would get extremely boring extremely quick. As usual, we want to have another sidebar conversation with you real fast. But don't worry, we'll bring it back once we're all on the same page and tie it in with the subject at hand. We want to discuss a principle of respecting one another as individuals. As individuals, we find that we all have different outlooks on many, if not most, aspects of life. Now, obviously, we will agree on some things, but being as though our backgrounds are different in so many different ways, it will cause us to have different views on many different things and issues. We would never tell you that respecting someone's opinion would mean that you have to take their opinion over yours. We would never tell you that it means that you must throw your opinion or that what you think or feel in the trash. It would be absurd for us to tell you that. Don't you agree? Well, then how can you justify treating your spouse like that, or even expecting this from them? Respecting someone else or their opinion simply means that you respect their right to have that opinion or feeling. It means not being bullheaded enough to think that yours is the only valid opinion or feeling. Of course, it may be best to you, but that is because of the way that you see it. Do you ever stop and think about why the other person thinks or feels the way they do? Do you ever consider that they may have a reason for feeling the way that they do about a certain topic? Even better, have you ever tried to ask them why they feel that way about that topic? I'm sorry, but the majority of the time, we don't even think like this. We see confrontation. We put our sights on it. We aim. We pull the trigger and we try to destroy. Now, is this the right way to show respect for your spouse and their opinions and feelings? No, it isn't. Would you accept it from them? As a matter of fact, forget would you. Do you accept it from them? No, without a doubt, there is no way that you accept this. So how can you expect them to sit by and accept it? We need to stop looking at everything that we disagree with our spouses about as a situation where there is a winner and a loser. We can't possibly expect to have a successful marriage like this. This is an equation that will only end up with an all-out war eventually. We have to begin to understand that many times there is no absolute truth. Therefore, there can be no absolute winner. Many times, we don't even find that the one with the most correct opinion is the one that wins the argument. Usually, it's just the most articulate one that can express themselves better, or the one that is better at intimidating the other party. These things in no way, shape, or form are rational ways that we can use to determine who is right and who is wrong. Think about it. Most of the things that you find yourselves disagreeing with one another about are things dealing with one another's opinions. if you think about it, many times there is some type of validity in what they're trying to point out to us. Most of the time, we are not arguing about which is right or wrong, but rather whose opinion is said to be more correct. Don't you see a problem with this? Do they or do they not have the right to have and hold their own opinion? I'll tell you what, next time this happens, try something. Instead of automatically jumping to attack your partner and their ideas, try to ask them why they think that. You will see that many times they have a valid reason for their thoughts. Once they explain it to you, you see why they feel the way that they feel, or think the way that they think about that particular issue. This way, you will not feel threatened by their opposing opinion, and you will be able to accept their ideas and respect them, even if you don't feel as though they are the best of opinions. Therefore, most likely you will not feel the need to try to force your opinion down their throats. Just remember that respecting one another's opinion does not mean that you have to take their opinion over yours. It just means that you recognize their right to have an opinion of their own. But then you have those of us that just like to argue for argument's sake. Now, so far this video, we've been trying to talk with you and your intellect. I believe by now, without a doubt, that you are more than convinced that if you were to try this tactic that we have been talking about, that you will be able to solve the majority of the problems that you run into most often. On the other hand, we have to leave a part of this video for those that just seem to like the constant battle and struggle. Those that like to try to reign supreme and to force their ideas on others. Well, we're here today to tell you that it's way better for you just to leave it alone. Stop bullying your spouse. A bully is a bully, whether it be physical or mentally. A bully is still just that, a bully. But what if I would tell you that you could trade in your trophy rack for a place in the Jannah? Would you be willing to make that trade? I know someone out there is saying to themselves right now that there's no way. But let me tell you something. I think as a Muslim, the average individual would not think twice about giving up the first for that spot in the Jannah. Now, I'm not saying it will be something that is easy to do, but it is definitely worth the try. Hey, look at it this way. The reward is huge. You have to expect to put some work in to get it. But that's enough for me trying to convince you. Look at what the Prophet ﷺ said about leaving off argumentation. Abu Dawood related a hadith in his Sunan about this very thing. In it, the Prophet ﷺ mentions the reward for leaving off arguing. He, ﷺ, said, أنا زعيم بيت في ربض الجنة لمن ترك براء وإن كان محقا وببيت في وسط الجنة لمن ترك الكذب وإن كان مازحا وببيت في أعلى الجنة لمن حسن خلقه. And this means that the Prophet ﷺ said, I guarantee a home in the outskirts of paradise for the one who gives up being argumentative, even if he was correct. And I guarantee a home in the middle of paradise for he who leaves off lying, even in a joke. And I guarantee a home in the highest part of the paradise for the one who perfects his character. This hadith was reported by Abu Dawood in his Sunan and classified Hasan by Imam at-Tirmidhi, rahimahullah, as well as Shaykh al-Albani, rahimahullah, in his Sahihah. So as we see, this hadith mentions a few different rewards that are given to the Muslim in terms of where they can live in the Jannah. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the best of those rewards. Allahumma ameen. But either way, We want to focus today mainly on the first part of this hadith. And this is where the Prophet ﷺ promised for the one that left off being argumentative, even if the truth was with them. Now think about that. You can give up the trophy or the bragging rights for bullying and intimidating your spouse mentally. May Allah forgive us and protect us from this. Allahumma ameen. But if we give this up, we get promised this reward. Subhanallah. So now what do you have to say? Those of you that just like arguing for the sake of arguing, is it really worth it? Do you really gain anything from it? Or would you rather gain that which you can really appreciate simply by leaving it off? The choice is yours. Now the last thing that I want to discuss with you in this video is the unnecessary tension that this habit of being argumentative has on a relationship. You know how it is to have someone that always goes against what you say or think. Everyone has had someone like this in their lives before. If you still don't have some sort of association with someone like this, do you like or did you ever like talking with them? Do you like even seeing them in the same room? Do you like knowing that they're on their way to where you are? Of course you don't. No one likes being around an individual like this. You just sit and wait for the confrontation to begin. Now think about it. With someone like this in your life, you can simply walk away from them. You can avoid seeing them, and you can leave when you know that they're on the way. But what if it was your spouse? The one that you go home to and the one that comes home to you. The one that you sit and eat with. The one that you try to relax and let your guard down around. Seriously, I want you to think about this situation for a second. Can you imagine having a spouse like this? Well, think about it in another way. How do you think your spouse feels when you do this to them? Or when they feel as though that you are this type of person with them, that you're always going against them and what they say? Do you think that they want to sit around you? Do you think that they wait excitedly until you come home? Do you think that they want so badly to discuss with you about how their day went and what they think about what is going on around the world? If you say yes, then something's wrong. You just said that you would not like being around someone like that. Someone that is always telling you that your point of view is not correct, or that your opinion is not valid, or that you're just dead wrong. So how can you expect that someone else likes it when you do it, let alone your spouse? So let's just try to agree to disagree, especially in those areas where there is possibly more than one way to look at things, or even more than one way to understand something. Sometimes you will find that your partner just doesn't understand, and that's fine. Let them have their way of understanding and let them have their own opinion. What is it hurting you? Why is it important that they take your opinion? Don't you think it's better that you keep the harmony in your relationship and that you don't make your partner dread having to converse with you because they know you will try to disagree with them? Remember that, as we said earlier, respecting your partner's opinion does not mean in any way that you see it to be better than yours, or that you take it as your opinion. Rather, it only means that you acknowledge it as a possibility, or even that you at least respect their right to form an opinion. So from today, let's agree to disagree sometimes. Let's stop the bullying and the mind games. And let's start to respect one another and each other's opinions and try to understand where the other person comes from before we try to destroy their thoughts and ideas. You will find that many times, if you just try this, it will be easier to explain your point. And who knows, they just might see once walking through the scenario verbally that your idea is better. Or actually, hold on to your seats. I have another idea. You might actually find that their way of looking at things is better. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put this level of understanding back between us and our spouses. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put that love and that affection between us and our spouses. Ameen, Ameen, Allahumma Ameen. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وأستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.